All right, welcome everybody to another DoneJS contributors meeting. This week we're ever closer to the 3.0 release that keeps eluding us. We'll hear more about that at the end. I'll give my status first. This week I was mostly organizing DoneJS 1.0 issues and oh, could everybody hear that? That was the video of me talking in echo. At least I could hear it. So that was mostly it for me, and just a lot of odds and ends and helping people with their issues. We'll go from, I guess, right to left. Elbide, you want to go next?
Sure. I worked on the CanStream, got it sort of implemented and documented as well. So it's ready for integration. And I'm working on can-define stream right now. Should have a first draft for the pull request ready. And then going to start documenting that.
Awesome. Matthew?
Yeah, I was trying to find the meeting notes so I could read them. Where is mine? So last week I've done can VDOM documentation. Was one thing I did.
Is that just me, or is Matthew gone digital?
I think he's stuck.
He's stuck. Well, while Matthew
changes.
Hey Matthew, your internet is moving really slow.
You can't hear me?
Kind of can.
Should I stop?
Go now. Go through it. Let's
Okay.
do it while it's working.
Yeah, so I've fixed a lot of system NPM issues. I added support for service workers to Steel. That was a fun one to work on. And so yeah, so next couple days I'll be doing bugs in Steel and SteelTools, and then I'll move on to documentation. I'm going to create the new guide for the puppy thing you did, and then I'm going to do like a migration guide, and there's a bunch of doc issues to fix as well. So yeah, and it's not going to take a super long time, I don't think, to do all this. Hopefully.
Do you want to upgrade to BitDocs?
Let's see. I'd rather get everything done, and if like I get everything done quickly, then yeah, sure, why not? I wonder how much trouble it will be. Okay,
sounds good. One thing I forgot to mention as part of my status is I'm going to start putting these right now. I've organized a lot of our main efforts into epics. And those have associated story points now for kind of us at Bitovi and what we're doing in regards to open source. So I'm gonna start posting how many points we've completed for how many points are remaining for every issue. Some of them you'll notice I kind of bullet point inside of other epics, because like the event stream epic needs to be complete for the feathers and CanJS integration epic. So this, like 75 points of the event stream are in the, are part of this 149 points for feathers plus CanJS. So same with like the 701 points for a DoneJS 1.0 release. We have to finish all of this other stuff. So week by week, this will hopefully, these numbers, I assume some of these numbers, of course, on the right will grow, but hopefully not as fast as the numbers on the left. Which means we're nearing completion. So I guess I do want to give high level, I'll just give quick high level status for where we are on everything. On CanJS, we're about to, there's a lot of issues remaining for a full release, but there's not many of them related to like code. We've just been the last like 2 weeks just trying to get every last thing working in every browser. I think we're really close. I'm sure David or Matthew will have, or Kevin will have more about that. With regards to SteelJS, I don't know, Matthew, if you want to mention just like high level, I think you kind of did.
High level, well, yeah, there's a lot of doc issues. There was a couple breaking changes, like not really breaking, well, there's some technically breaking changes, but anyways. And then like I moved all the configuration over to a Steel option in package.json, deprecating system, even though we'll still support system. probably talking too much. So yeah, there's not much code changes that are happening at this point. It's mostly going to be doc stuff.
Cool. And then for DoneJS, we are gonna we'll probably update it to bitdocs, mostly because a lot of the issue, while I was going through the issues, I wasn't planning on doing it, but there's a lot of issues related to kind of cut and paste and copying of the guides, and the new CanJS's ability to do a better diff and show show part of the code, but you can expand the rest, so you can always get to the full file. Makes it so that there's people who just copy and paste like a package, like some package.json step somewhere that people mess up because we don't give them the full package.json. So this site will be worth the upgrade because we have to re-implement a lot of the same stuff we've already implemented in bitdocs. So that's one part of it. But on a high level, my plan for DoneJS 1.0 itself, because I've just put bullet points here. I think the plan will be we're going to update the example apps, the PMO, and the guide to work in 3.0. I know Matthew's already done some progress on that, or the chat and the PMO. And then we're going to update the guides themselves. And then once we've done that, we'll kind of know what the generator should be producing, hopefully, at that point. And then we'll just fix all of the bugs that are we can get to around the framework. So that's what's for 3.0, and there's a whole bunch of issues that I've prioritized and time pointed around that. So any questions, comments, concerns on the high level kind of goals and approach we're taking? All right, let's keep going through statuses. Kevin, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been working on getting all the tests running for CanJS 3.0 in all the different browsers. I've been fixing a lot of flaky tests and fixing some tests that never worked in IE10 mainly. So most of that is done now. All of the projects I think are added. The only things that are missing that are kind of CAN dependencies are CAN jQuery, CAN VDOM, and CAN zone. And I don't think we actually want to run any of the tests for any of those. So I think for now everything's added. Now it's just getting things running. So we've been having some issues with Sauce Labs being kind of flaky. Things just time out in Sauce Labs. So we'll have to take a look at that. And then there's some stuff that's not working yet in IE9 with the CAN fixture that I think David will probably talk about too. Other changes that I made, CAN jQuery now works it doesn't throw an error if you don't have jQuery. The reason we had to change that is because I was breaking the can.all build. And then the last thing I did was I fixed the can route warning that I put in a few weeks ago that warns you when you have a duplicate route. So that's it for me. Next week, hopefully this stuff with CAN will be finished and I can start working on the DoneJS generator stuff and DoneJS 1.0 changes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, there is an epic for figuring out what to do with the generators, and maybe it's worth a conversation at the end of this as a topic. Because we've already talked about being able to customize them is an issue, and the best way of doing that. Jonathan, you want to go next?
Sure. So this week I started off working on documentation, main site. Then I moved on to more of the DoneJS stuff. So I verified a fix for generator validation for the project name to make sure it was a proper NPM package. So that was already done. I just made sure it worked. And then made a fix for giving an absolute or an external path during the DoneJS generator. I still need to go back and it's not actually published yet. Still having an issue with the with tests on NPM, older NPM versions. But basically what that means is if you give it an absolute path, if that path is in your project name, it will change it to a relative path. And if that path is external to the project name, it'll error. And then yesterday I started working on DoneJS Electron to hopefully add some support for that. So we can do a DoneJS add Electron like you would do DoneJS add NW or DoneJS add Cordova. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Elliot, you want to go next?
Yes, sure. So I'm working on CAN fixture socket. And so last week I was finishing implementing the feathers protocol and to these cases, yeah. So one of them were like to use feathers client app. That seems to work fine. And this week I'll be working on documentation of the module. That's me.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to be able to fixture socket connections soon, which will be nice and pave the way for the future, I guess, so that we can actually write apps the way, when the services aren't working yet. That'll be great. Thanks, Ilya. Garrett?
Hey, so I'm still working on the CanJS site. We're pretty much done with the content and functionality of it. I'm still ironing out some of the interactive bugs, mostly dealing with scroll position because of all the dynamic content in the guides. Things you'll notice in the next release will be the drop downs for the logo and the version. I've also been adding the new introduction docs that Adam and Brian are finishing. Still need to add the links to the source code, and eventually we'll get on the search feature.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. Hey, David.
Morning. This week I made the 3.0 releases for most of the sub projects. I think all of them now. I also wrote a maintenance and release guide that I didn't get to finish because we found a million problems with IE9, which we're working on fixing now, but the can fixture one is kind of tough. Kevin and I spent a good chunk of time on some of that stuff yesterday, but I'm not sure if you, well, I didn't get anywhere really yet, so we're going to continue working on that today.
Hey, Julian. How's it going? Sorry you couldn't get in.
Yeah. Hi.
Want to go next?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I have nothing to talk today. So I'm just listening the interesting hangout. So.
Cool. Well, welcome for us. Binod, how you doing?
Hey guys, good to see you all again. I've been extremely busy with planning stuff at work, so I haven't been able to look at a lot of stuff, but I do have a couple of thoughts, questions, comments. I was chatting with Justin earlier on the chat room as well about the Func Unit release. If we could get that sorted out, or I could learn to do it, that'd be awesome as well. So maybe later today or Monday, Justin or someone can help me through that.
Yeah, I'm available 24/7 to help you learn how to do that. So anytime you're available or have time, just let me know, and I can help show you everything.
Right, so maybe I'll contact you for that part. So that's one. The other is on Func Unit. Again, we have been something's been brought to our attention that the pointer events change in Chrome 55 now in Canary could possibly be an issue in terms of synthetic events like clicks not being processed by certain products. It's not by everything, but by stuff like digit in Dojo, which is something we still use. Apparently switches over to pointer event mode or something like that when this feature is on. And so the synthetic events aren't working. I believe Selenium events and real user clicks obviously are still working, but the Func Unit or Syn events are not going through. That's what I've been told. I haven't really dug into it, but it certainly is an issue if we're gonna look at Chrome 55 upgrade, which is coming up soon. So wanted to bring that up. I might look some more into it, or if some of you have already done that, maybe we can benefit from learning there.
So is the problem that what is it, Dojo or whatever? It uses pointer events rather than click events. If those are available, is that why it's a problem? So basically, we would need to add that support to Sin, I guess. Would be my guess.
That's the case, yeah. So there's apparently some difference between the synthetic clicks and the let's say browser level clicks that so any sense, where the latter somehow still works, but the synthetic somehow isn't being received or processed by some of these products like Digit. So maybe I'll use Digit as a test case here when I'm looking at this, and maybe put together some simple test case here to explore this.
Yeah, and I can show you how to write one of those test cases too, so that and we can write one together that sets that up and breaks. And it tends to be, once you have a good working example of it breaking, it's a little bit easier to figure out the right solution.
So I'll set that up, and hopefully sometime next week we can look into that.
Yeah.
And then the only other or final thing I have is Unit 2. I still haven't been able to get back to it. I know I said I'll try to set some time up with someone, but right now that's in my back burner because of these other issues. So maybe I'll get to that when I get a chance. That's
awesome. It. Great. Thanks, Vinod. Really appreciate it. Adam, you want to go next?
Yeah, I've been working on the CanJS website with Brian, working on some pages comparing CanJS to other popular libraries and frameworks. And yeah, I think it looks like we'll just keep continuing doing this. So that's the game.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Marshall?
Yeah. So this week I worked more on the Can Connect Feathers behaviors, and then worked on a little on the Feathers authentication plugin for the Feathers client to make that work with basically nailing down an API that works with both sockets and XHRs across both the browser and the Done SSR server. And then also spent some time planning out the next version of Feathers authentication for the server. Has a lot better API, so we can just make like our own plugin for implementing like auth however we want to, whatever will work well for like working with data definitions, like what we do is can define, so we can customize it to be perfect for whatever we want. So just working more on what that'll look like, designing that API today, and we'll see what I can put together. That's awesome. Basically it.
Yeah, that'll be a fun thing to go through with everybody at some point too. How to make sessions, like what we're doing with sessions. It's pretty. It'll be pretty awesome. All right. Any other topics people want to talk about, or any other status? I don't think so, but I think we move on to topics now. Any topics? Because I've got that. I want to talk the generator epic. Basically, we've talked about this before. We want to be able to support with DoneJS's generators, like different formats, different test types, a bunch of different options. I know this is something that Kevin's worked on, and like I think the solution right now has been just to put create a directory within your DoneJS project that you can overwrite your generators, and then your add component generators will use that. I don't know how you. I brought this up before, and I can't remember where we got to it. But I still feel like the solution, the long-term solution, the best solution is. I wish I brought Curtis with this as well. Is that we have. He was talking about a project that can already do a lot of code transformations, and I think that is probably the best way of doing it. Is we have our component generator written in ES6 with QUnit, which is our standard, and then we just write translators that translate, which already exist for things like ES6 to require or CommonJS, and we just have to have one for like QUnit to Mocha or QUnit to Jasmine, and that's how we do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think something like JS Code Shift or some kind of code mod thing would be the best way to do it. But I think we need to provide some kind of helper project to make that work, because the trick is that they're not standard JavaScript files. They're EJS templates that have template tags in them. So we really need to render the EJS with the way, I think we talked about this before, is like take the EJS, replace all of its like template tags with some sort of IDs, create a JavaScript file, allow you to code mod that, and then translate it back to EJS by taking the IDs out and putting the template tags back in. Does that make sense?
Could you do the transformation after you wrote everything out?
So you mean like while the generators are running?
Well, let the generators run and then do another pass where like you're just gonna.
You could, but then you could, but I think the problem with that is we'd have to keep the order somehow of how people added their generators. So like, or how people added their plugins. So if someone says DoneJS add CommonJS and then DoneJS add Mocha, we need, when you run, say, DoneJS add component, it's going to need to run the component generator, then run the CommonJS generator, then run the Mocha generator. And those generators are going to have to handle all of the different permutations instead of just having to look at what the templates are raw and update them.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there, but why is this important? Doesn't DoneJS want to be opinionated about the stuff that you're using? If I've learned one thing, then that code transformations are incredibly hard, especially with templates to maintain. We've done that in a project, and it was a huge mistake. Because as soon as people change any of the code to something that you don't expect, it'll blow up.
I guess, I mean, I look at it, I mean, were templates, like, I'm not too concerned. Well, I mean, it depends what templates. If we're talking about stash templates, like, we don't really need to translate them. I think the only ones to me that really, I think the ES6 to CommonJS, I don't think that that's going to be a problem. Like, I think that that's...
No, I know, Steel already does that,
yeah,
but why don't you just say, okay, we're like promoting best practices, and best practices ES6 modules. It's going to be transpiled anyway.
I'm not totally
well,
actually in agreement that ES6 modules.
Okay, that's fine, but the vast majority, I would say, is at least everybody who is writing modern JavaScript is using ES6 modules.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get hit 100% of people either way, but if we could support ES6 and CommonJS, I think that would be nice.
And I think the other testing stuff would be nice. I mean, those are the only two that I really feel like I would. I mean, I don't think a lot of people don't want to use QUnit, even though I'm fine with it. I don't know. This is why we have an epic. I mean, we can discuss. I'm glad we got into the discussion. I think we need to have more discussion on it.
See, I don't think that our templates are that complicated, and I don't think that it would be that hard. So I don't see us running into the problems that you're suggesting, David, and maybe that's...
What project did you do this on, David?
Yeah, that's what we thought.
Yeah,
some of the feathers. And they're even simpler than most of DoneJS, and it's quite the disaster.
Did you tried this approach with like a...
Yeah, well, basically it's doing some AST transformations and then writes the code back when inserting stuff.
But you're doing that yourself? You're doing the AST transformations yourself?
Well, no, we're using a tool, but you still have to transform the AST. Like those tools, they just give you an AST and then allow it to transform it back and spit it out in a new way.
Right.
But as soon as somebody adds something, anything that's not the way you expect it, it basically just blows up with some undefined property access.
But let's make sure who's adding something, because it would be us adding to our generators.
Well, it wouldn't just be
I'm saying as soon as somebody modifies the code, it's going to blow up. we actually went down the path of thinking about, well, if the problem is the code modifications, then why not just write and read JSON files where you can configure it with? That might be a little harder on the client, but it's definitely easier to write and read from.
And Justin, it wouldn't just be us. I mean, it'd be anyone that creates a plugin.
Yes, but not all plugins would, have to. I guess I see a different. I see that, like, I see it possible that someone makes a plugin, and then I don't think people would freak out if, like, someone is using some third-party plugin that breaks when they try to use it, like when it tries to write itself to CommonJS, or if it writes tests, they don't perfectly translate to Mocha. I'm all right with that. I'm just saying for our core generators, I think it's not hard to make it work. For just our core generators on those two axes, just like tests and module format.
So then the alternative is, why don't we just provide those options and provide different templates? Just when you add a project, select ES6 or CommonJS and select your test framework.
I almost feel like it's well, because that's if we have 3 times 2 formats, that's 6. If we have 3 different test types and 2 formats, that's 6 different templates. I'd almost rather just make the translation, and then you've just got like 5 things of work instead of 6, if that makes sense. And then you've got that also so actually I take it back, it's even worse, because you've got 3 format, let's say you did 3 tests, 2 formats, and then for every single generator and every single file, right? You've got
That's only like 4 files though. We don't have that many generators.
Versus 5 transformation tools routines you'd have to write. I think it'd be much more maintainable to just maintain those 5 than like all of those files, because I don't want to, if I change the generator, I don't want to go change 5 other files every time. That would not be
I was just asking to play devil's advocate. I actually agree with you that the transformations is probably easier, but
mathematically,
I haven't tried it. Yeah.
Math QED. I proved that it is. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm done with that discussion for now. We've got time before we have to make a decision. Warming people up. All right. Anything else?
I have a small, hopefully not as controversial as that one. I'm going to change in SteelTools. Maybe I'll leave it. Well, no, I probably won't leave it backwards to that. The way that you set the bundles, where you want the bundles to go, there's a bundles path property. So if you want to move your bundles to somewhere other than the default place, dist bundles, I'm going to change that in SteelTools to be dest, just because I think it's a little confusing that bundles path in SteelTools and bundles path in the browser do different things.
Wait, sorry, say that again. I'm not understanding what you're saying.
So if you want to put if you don't want to put your by default, Steel writes bundles to dist bundles.
Yeah.
And when you do a build, it will write it to the base URL plus dist bundles. So if you want to change where it writes to, you can modify the bundles path property in your like build script and write it to somewhere else. But then you also have to update your configuration of the client.
It's confusing to everybody. Yeah.
It's confusing, yeah, because it's doing something different. Well, it feels different, I guess you would say. So I think I'm gonna change the name of it in the build perspective to dest. So you still have to use bundles path in the client. That's not going to change, but just name it something different so that there's no confusion that that's the same thing, I guess.
Okay.
Where would you configure the bundles path for SteelTools, in the package JSON or only in the build script?
So you wouldn't need. I don't think you would need to configure bundles path in the build, because bundles path in the build doesn't really make any sense. It's really in the build, you're specifying an output directory.
I meant the dest property. Where do you want to configure?
In the browser? In the browser, you have to do it in the script tag. Because
no. The dest property for SteelTools.
yeah.
Where do you want to configure that? In the build script or also in the package JSON?
Probably in the build. It's like a build option, I think.
Okay.
I think it's I don't think it makes a lot of sense to put in the package JSON because it's like relative to where your build script is. It's like an absolute. It's like a server path. I don't think it makes sense to put that kind of stuff into the Steels. It's the Steels config.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, is there any other topics? Because then I want to get into the weeds of this, and people can take off. If
weeds of what? Of this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so yeah, no worries if people need to take off and get to their stuff. So we write out Steel now, right? In the bundles, right?
What do you mean by that?
We copy SteelJS into the dest folder.
Oh, well, only if you have bundles assets. If you have bundle assets on, we do.
Okay.
DoneJS does.
Should bundle okay. So this is always one of those most confusing parts for everyone. Just like legitimately everybody for all time, this trying to change the dest. Hey, welcome back, Binod. Binod, I was just saying, like, we're about to get super into the weeds of Steel, and if people need to take off and get done whatever they need to do, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Matthew, what I was just saying is, this is one of the most confusing parts of Steel is when you want to change the path, like you want to change the export path, because you can change the export path, but you're still loading the Steel that's in, like, the root node modules folder. I wonder if 1.0, if we always move Steel out and it's always expected, hey, you want to load production? If you want to load production, you got to load the production SteelJS that was like moved into your dist folder. Well, then Steel, the whole like build kind of bundle really is transportable. It can be like, you could zip up that whole file and you can move it wherever you want. And as long as your production loads that Steel, then everything could be made to just work. So I feel like maybe for 1.0, if you want to move to production, well, before you just wrote like env equals production, but I actually think maybe you should just what we should do is just change it so that you point at the production Steel. Yeah,
so like I think I understand what you're saying. So when you do bundles asset, when you do unbundle assets true, one of the things it does is copy Steel.production to your dist, and it adds. I think it adds the bundles path to there. That way you don't have to do it at all, which is nice.
Because what we could change to is, hey, you've got, instead of like having to change the environment or to Steel.production.js, which you kind of already have to do to switch to production, you can just point your page to wherever that dest Steel, we always write out Steel regardless of bundles path or not, and that Steel is written out in such a way that it's going to make sure that it grabs, like, package.json is kind of included with it, and it's always going to get the be able to load the right stuff, because you're going to load Steel, or you're going to load like the Steel bundle Steel file, and that's what you do to production. So there's none of this like secondary, like, that's why it's so confusing, is because Steel thinks you're based around Steel, your project root gets set, but then you've got to kind of then there's another translation which bundles path can happen. And that's really confusing. I guess
it's the root confusion is that Steel doesn't know anything about your environment. It doesn't know anything about your build. So I guess what you're getting at is, we create a Steel that does know all that stuff. It just kind of removes the confusion because it's all embedded. It's all embedded. It's like all the configuration you use to build is packaged together, so it's all known.
Yeah, people have always been like, why can't I just take a zip? Like, I just want to, what's the I think what people, because they always want to like move all of their code around and have it kind of have referential integrity, right? So We just need to give them, here's the stuff in production that you need, and make it as easy to point a page to that so it works as possible. And I would just say now, the documentation is still as simple and straightforward as it is. It's instead of changing Steel to Steel.production.js, and then it can still somehow magically work, you're going to change it to point at your
dist Steel.production.
Your dist Steel. And then the nice thing about that, probably could make it, especially because you're writing out that Steel anyways, you could probably tell it what its main is, right? You could like sneak that into the written out Steel. Then we don't have to tell people to write like main in their script tag either.
Yeah.
So, but we can bundle Steel. So we can write out a bundled file that contains Steel production, that contains the main property, that contains the bundles path, and you have one file that you can put in every script tag, and it's working. So that's the one point. The second point is if Steel is in development mode, it knows it's a Steel module. It looks for the root for the module node modules folder, and then it goes down to the dist folder. So if you do that, what Matthew said, if you do a asset true, you put your Steel production into the dist folder and can use it. So I not understand the issue what you're talking about.
Well, I think what we're talking about is just making that the default behavior.
Yeah.
Basically what bundle asset true does, make that the default. Now, I don't think we should do all the CSS rewriting and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think you need to do that by default, but I think the gone should be like Steel.production.js should not even be built inside of the Steel node modules. Like you should never, that should not exist anymore. It should always be using some other built one. Is what I'm saying.
But then you have to rewrite your script tag every time. Now you can
change your script tag anyways when you move to production.
No, yeah, okay, but you can put an end production and you are in production mode, right?
Yeah, but you just have to change the path. I guess I don't see that as too. I don't see that as now. Actually, I take it back. There is one consideration though, which is well, maybe it's not I'm trying to think. The consideration is the reason why it's done the way it is done right now is I made the assumption that like people are gonna have images and things like that just in their normal development directory, and then that the bundle assets thing is hard to get totally working for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Does moving Steel?
No.
I guess it's only if they're
This shouldn't affect that stuff.
It's only if they're using Steel to like as a reference, like the Steel root, because that does change the root though, right? It thinks the root is no longer like the normal root. It thinks root is inside like dest. So if they were somehow using Steel's root,
because there's no node modules folder anymore. So Steel has a configuration where it knows is it a Steel module or is it overwritten or is the base path overwritten by your configuration. And if we make a bundle and if you make a bundle assets true, then it puts into that Steel production all the stuff that's overwriting the base path. So it's overwriting.
It shifts the base URL. The base URL was your root of your.
The base URL becomes dist. It becomes the dist folder.
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I was. That's exactly
so,
what I thought.
Like CSS and stuff. I mean, that won't change. Like you're not dynamically changing CSS URLs. You may be in your code doing some stuff with base URL, maybe.
But you're moving it so that you have to kind of do the CSS writing in that case, rewriting in that case, because like
it already happens. CSS rewriting already happens. It's always happened.
But oh, you're right. It already happens, but it doesn't move the images, but the rerunning happens. Okay, so that's fine, I guess. Actually, that's all right. It's only the only problem would be if I have some JavaScript code that's gonna do like system.base URL, like I'm plus images slash logo PNG, and I'm gonna create an image tag and stick that in the page.
I mean, we could have it set the base URL to be what it already is. We can make it be what it
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like that's the hard part of this, and that's why like it worked the way that it's worked from the beginning is because it keeps the base. The way it works right now is it always keeps the base URL the base URL. If we change this, the base URL by default is going to move to the destination, and then people, if they're doing anything, well, you're gonna have to copy those assets there. I think that's okay. I think we're in a world now where like that's not gonna freak people out that they've got to move their. If you have any image assets or doing anything like JavaScript or whatever, hey, you have to maintain that same referential integrity now in this dest folder. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think the gain is better than what you might lose.
Yeah, I think it's really nice for people to be when they're writing their build scripts or whatever to be able to say, I want everything here.
Right.
So now we lost everyone.
I knew that would happen. Yeah.
Bundle assets just drive people away.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's just a weird concept, right? Like or maybe it just needs to be named differently. It's like we need to say like in some ways we need to like it's just I would document this. Like I mean in some ways I would before you make a decision try some things out.
Create an issue.
Make some an issue, but I mean like actually make the documentation for SteelJS and like think, okay, I'm a user coming to this and I've got to I want to and that's why I think a user just comes and thinks like I want to move everything here and I want it to work.
Well, we have a moving to production guide which goes over all this stuff anyways. Like it's going to be much nicer without this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if that can help, I guess make sure you're doing things the right way. Is if you write a guide for a user and if you can explain it easily now, more easily than there was, then we're probably doing things the right way. In some ways, what it really is, it's like it's both a base URL shift plus a writing of these files. It's like this would become two things in one in some ways. Your dest is your new base URL. And that's relatively easy to explain to people. It's like this could be this new dest, or what you could just say is like whatever folder you could write out to the dest and then you can move it around, but that is the new base URL. And anything Okay. Well, just like anything that like is using base URL that isn't one of these files or something that's making use of it, like if you're doing your JavaScript, well then you need to account for that and move stuff into this new base URL.
But how can you break through the base URL? For example, you have now your bundles in your dist folder, and for sometimes you need a CSS file outside the dist folder, but you don't want it to put it in the dist folder. Why? Whatever. So you can't break through the base or the root because you are in the root. You can't get on top of the root, right? So you are
stick. You can't really get out. I mean, you can't already get out the root currently.
No. You can't. You can't. If you want to load a CSS file by Steel, you can't go.
Yeah. So in some ways, like the problem still exists, and we're not. I don't think. I guess what I'm saying is
bundled anyways. You're loading CSS. It's bundled.
Yeah, but not always. If you make a dynamic CSS loading, for example,
does anyone do that?
Yeah, you don't do that. You're right.
Well, no, I guess I would say that, like, well, I agree that those use cases could exist where you need to, like, get out. I mean, people have asked, like, how do you, I want to be able to load a JavaScript file outside of my root or a CSS file outside of my root. And I guess what I'm saying is this change of making bundles URL dist or whatever, or bundles path, just dest, doesn't create more of a problem. That problem exists in both, and it's not making it somehow worse or better to solve.
Well, yeah, and like again, the point needs to be remembered that DoneJS does this already. This is how DoneJS works. Your base URL in production is your dist folder currently. So any problems that we're thinking of would happen there. And we have helpers that use base URL.
Base URL is synced with your dist by default, or not? It's not in your dist by default then, because your base URL in production, the way it currently works is your it's still your main base URL. It doesn't change. There's the bundles path that like knows how to map, like moves everything that are your, like if something's in a bundle, like it knows how to look for your bundles inside your bundles path, but your base URL stays the same.
I guess that's true. Yeah, you're right.
So that's what I'm saying. This would change your base URL to this. I don't know. This is a suggestion. I don't know. I think this is a common. It's an interesting and weird.
Yeah, it's worth seeing if
we'll see if it makes it better, maybe. I don't know. Anyways. Cool. Anything else?
One question to Matthew. You put a note that you want to change the architecture or of Steel or something like that. I'm reading wrong. So you posted a little note that you're changing.
Are you talking about on the AST thing?
Yeah.
You had an issue about doing like AST transforms? Yeah, maybe. That's like way in the future though.
Okay.
What was it about?
Well, we've had problems in the past, like module detection and stuff like that. And Julian had an idea of like actually if you actually have an AST, then you can detect module format. It handles other problems better too, where like some people use the node buffer, which is like a global. So like detecting globals, if you have an AST, you can detect that something is a global and do stuff better.
But
we do a lot of stuff with like regexes right now.
How do yes, but I would just do a word of caution about that would be, how do ASTs deal with new syntax historically?
With new syntax, they do not well.
A regular expression does. Like it's still just looking at, you know what I mean? Like it'd be interesting to have like if there's an AST out. I would agree with that if there's like an AST that's like can handle syntax that it doesn't understand. Like it's just like all it does is look for beginning and open parentheses and beginning and open. Like it looks for just beginning and opening pairs of syntax, and it's just like I see something. I don't know what it is. Skipping, because that's what you would really need to deal with like all of the potential. I mean, who knows what the code might look like? ES12 or something like that. To make something long term that can deal with all of that, you would have to have something that can tolerate a little fuzziness. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
it's downside.
Consideration for that. Yeah.
Well, it would have to be. It would have to be like a non-critical feature of Still. It could be like something that still has to have an AST, or it doesn't work.
Yeah, I wonder if how fuzzy you can get. Like, I mean, it would be an interesting. I just think that would be a fun idea in general. Like, this is actually I could see it as just a huge problem now that all of these transpilers are everywhere now. Making something that, like, I think there needs to be an AST thing that's just like, okay, we're gonna get the basics. And if anything gets thrown at this, that's fine. We can ignore it somehow. We say, hey, there's an expression here that I don't understand. Moving on. Right?
Yeah. I wonder about that with like Babel, because Babel supports like all this non-JS stuff like JSX, and like how does that work in the parser? Like you have to, like, it's the same problem, right? You have to know what a token is. You have to know that, okay, this is the start of something. I need to pay attention to this. I don't know how, if that can be handled in kind of a very generic way.
Especially with some of the new, like, you know, with the shorthand single line functions, like some of those would not be obvious, I think, to say like, oh, that's a, you know, I see that and I can understand that there's like something there and I'm going to skip on and I know where to skip to, right? That's what you need is like a generic ES4 parser that that just it throws its hands up okay and says, okay, I'm moving on past this, I'm moving on past this. And also the reason is performance, because then you're not having to, like, you know, you're just finding the good parts and then moving on, right? You don't need like a full, you don't need the super complex expression. That's why, like, one thing DocumentJS does, which I think is interesting, is it has a parser that only finds like pairs. Like, it just, I never actually put this into place to use it, but for like detecting if you know, this is a function or something like that, it looks for open bracket, close brackets, and knows where those are, and open and that kind of stuff, and it looks for like semicolons, and it's really sloppy, but that's kind of its charm at the same way. It just like it knows where a function starts and ends because it knows like what functions look like.
Yeah. I thought about that with, like, I was specifically thinking about like detecting globals. You need to know a lot to detect a global. Like, you have to know about closures and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to know about local variables. It'd be hard to do that without doing most of it.
Yeah, especially with like all the like var, const, let, you know what I mean? Like, how do you? It's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. In some ways, it's got to like.
Right.
The syntax is got a slow. It's very nice, and everybody loves the shorthand syntax. But the syntax is what hurts these kind of tools.
Right. Yeah, they really haven't slowed down either, as far as I can tell, on new syntax stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that specific problem. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I would say that it'd be a very useful thing to have, though, for sure.
You just need to develop artificial intelligence so that and feed it just thousands of programming languages and make it an expert computer scientist, and they can just simply read through the code and be like, yeah, I think that's a global. Right. I've never seen this syntax before, but I think I can reasonably say that's a global. Yeah. And this is clearly AMD format or UMD, and that's your problem solved. I'll time point that as like 1,000 time points or something like that.
Yeah, it's gonna happen eventually.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. See y'all next week or later.
See ya.